Hey everybody, Merry CHRSTmas. So in this video I am going to talk about Christmas in the sense of Christ consciousness. So I remember a few years ago I was shown, I think it was around Easter time, that this idea of Jesus, or really Yeshua is his real name. You know, we all see him as Jesus Christ. This idea of Christ is a level of consciousness that he obtained through earth and through ascension. Now, more people are becoming aware or tapping into, and this is the Magdalene, right? Mary Magdalene also was at a level of Christ consciousness. They were, I guess, twin flames is how New Age people see divine masculine, divine feminine, kind of, and they came into union. And it is through that union that more different things were able to occur. Now, when we talk about Yeshua and how he came, the Easter time, you know, now is a time where they celebrate his birth, which is actually not really his birth. So for me, I've translated Christmas to CHRSTmas and to really celebrate this idea of Christ consciousness, and that we're all moving into on our, you know, as we evolve as souls. There are souls that actually have came with that level of consciousness already awoken within themselves. Others have it already in it already had been awakened, but they chose to experience certain situations for them to remember it. And now for others are all going along their soul journey to get to that level of consciousness. Wherever you are, it's beautiful, it's perfect, we're all on our own paths, right? And this level of Christ, of consciousness, of this one love, how I really see it and how I've kind of embodied it in my life is this idea of really being able to embody what forgiveness is in this realm and where we are in this world right now, to experience certain densities, to certain hardships, certain abuse, whatever it was that, you know, there's things that we choose to experience as souls, and other things that actually from our free will or free will of others that we've actually experienced due to those choices. And when we get exposed to certain levels of density, pain, suffering, and this, you know, we're all human, right? We all go through these levels of darks and lights, right? But it is through the forgiveness of owning our own experience and moving through the healing of these experiences that we went through, whether it was by choice, by free will, by divine will, whatever it was. When we choose to do the healing and go within and honor the soul experience that we are having as an individual being, and witnessing all of these aspects that come up, the dark thoughts, the light thought, you know, the positive thoughts, the negative, the positive, and negative and positive in the sense of like positive in alignment with who you are and it feels good to your soul and who you are, and negative as in the sense of you wouldn't want more of that in your life, right? And so when we allow ourselves to move through all of it as an individual, as an I am, as an individual being, honoring our own unique experience outside of everything else, we can move through to the higher understanding, through this one love of unconditional love, of having compassion, because you have a compassion and love for your own unique experience in it. And then it's easier to witness and hold others in that. A lot of times when we're exposed to abuse growing up, the higher chakras are what become overactive with rose-tinted reality, over fantasizing, want to stay up into the higher realms, seeing people for their higher selves and kind of staying up there, because the density of the emotion of your individual experience wasn't safe to feel. And so a lot of times they get overly developed, and that's how one survives. And when you become to adult, when we allow, and especially also if you are someone who embodies the Christ consciousness already in your being, that seeing others from a place of unconditional love and not putting yourself in that mix, that's where like codependency comes in, and that's where different human psychological diagnoses come in, where you're like sacrificing yourself because you see someone else's potential, you're able to see their hurt, their wounding, this idea of empath, and especially if enmeshment too, where you feel and you take on everyone else's stuff. But when we come into a place of giving that nourishment to ourselves, that level of self-love to ourselves, that level of compassion to ourselves, and not necessarily sacrificing it, becoming a martyr, this idea of Jesus taking on other people's sins, right? That's actually in doing so, in taking on, like they say he died for his people, right? Through the unconditional love that Mary was able to move through her anger and resentment of him sacrificing himself, through being able to be authentic with these feelings that she had towards his path, allowed an openness for her heart to be able to be present to how much she really loved him. And it is through that, it is through the miracle of witnessing and moving through the human experience, that she was able to tap into the miracle of being able to contribute to rise someone from the dead, right? This is really intense for me. This is like the first time I'm really channeling this and bringing in the energy of it. It's really intense. And so today, we can see that in the martyr role, in the different roles that we play in society, and how they come through in different ways, and how at that time people needed to see that people would sacrifice themselves for others. That's what that time needed. Right now, what we're coming into of time of like the Mary Magdalene energy, the feminine energy, where tapping into your own individual experience of things to move through the humanness of it, to come into this idea of unconditional love from a sense of it includes you. It includes honoring and self-care, and it is through that the union of masculine and feminine can happen. And it is through that this kundalini, the feminine energy is coming back into play, coming into balance. And when we balance that with inside ourselves and allow that to be embodied, that we are contributing to bringing that balance into the earth, into the humans, into humanity, into the universe, consciousness, taking religion out of this and really embodying energy and this Christness of unconditional love, including ourselves. And so the whole story of Christ consciousness isn't just Yeshua, but Mary Magdalene, and it's such a bigger picture. And through honoring both of these aspects within ourselves, of what has been deemed as appropriate and what has been deemed as sinful, right? We're redefining this by going within, by allowing ourselves to validate our inner experiences, whether that is through intuitiveness, whether that is through owning our individual feelings, right? Through allowing ourselves to do the inner work, loving ourselves in all of it, the unconditionalist, the dirty thoughts that we have had, the bad thoughts that we have about ourselves, the bad thoughts that we have, bad, negative, right? Thoughts we have about others and how they're actually not really us, but programmed into us. And it's through the awareness of this, not from a place of like, oh, let me shove that aside because that's bad, but more of like, oh, I see this, I'm aware of this, this is not who I am. Oh, this is from that person. That's not mine. That's not who I am. And through more owning the I am, the more Christ, the more we embody into our beings. But it's not disregarding the lower energies, the lower of what we've experienced or what we've been exposed to. It's allowing to integrate that from a place of like, oh, okay, I witnessed this. Yes, I went through that abuse. I went through that trauma. I'm validating my experience in it. And through validating the emotion and through validating and allowing ourselves to integrate that wound and transform it into something else. In traditional Chinese medicine, I kind of really love their system because with the emotions, the meridians, they align everything, like the lungs, the lungs in the large intestines, right? There's emotions that are connected with letting go and grief and what is the positive attribute of that? Courage, I think. I'm not 100% sure. I'm going to go to the liver and the gallbladder, right? That anger, that resentment, and transforming it into a level of compassion, right? This is what happens when we allow ourselves to honor and witness where we are in any given experience. And also with joy. There's so many times that we have been conditioned not to experience joy and to allow ourselves to tap back into that. And because there is an addiction that we can get to the lower energies too. And I know this as well. And so allowing that balance to happen, that transformation to happen, to move through the lower densities and experience the transformational alchemy response to that. The purple violet flame is actually something that's really great to help move through certain karmic, which is, there's so much stigma even around the word karma. I kind of don't like, there's the cause and effect, right? And so you experience something, and there's a cause that has on us as individuals. And when we allow ourselves to move through the effect of it, then we can create cause into something else. And it's a cycle, and you can contribute into a repeating pattern, or you can allow yourself to move into another pattern. And the violet flame, Saint Germain, Lady Porta, violet flame angels, the dragons, right? It brings in a level of transmutation to these negative energies, and you don't necessarily have to know what they are. You're only exposed to the knowledge of what it is when it is for your greatest good to move forward. Sometimes you don't even need to know what it is, which is a beautiful thing. So when we invite spirit into this alchemy of change, you know, it's a whole different ball game than having to kind of go through a lot of the quote unquote harder or more awareness, or I don't want to say harder, it's a different path. It's a completely different path. When you have spirit with you and you're working with energies on a very alchemative level, and this is even if you take working with elements, you know, kind of whatever, the visualization, meditation, all this kind of stuff, journeying and allowing visualization to be incorporated into your healing process, invites an energy outside of you into your being and into the healing. And like I said, what needs to be conscious will be conscious for you, and trusting that, excuse me, right? So on this eve of CHRSTmas is when I am filming this, and I'm also, you know, if you are someone who has this level of CHRSTmas already in your soul knowing, bringing in your higher self into the equation, because it's something that your soul already has experienced. And when you invite your higher self in to the healing process for yourself, you're inviting that part of you that already knows the Christ consciousness. And when you embody that, whether it is through your journeys, visual meditations, like I do parts work. And in my parts work with my therapist, my higher self always wants to come in. And when I remember the first time when my higher self came in, my therapist is like, what? Who is it? What? Where did they come from? And I'm just like, they're here, you know. And it's I love doing parts work because there's so many aspects of ourselves that can be present in that moment that want to contribute. And when we invite, and it's our future self too, right? But our higher selves can help navigate where we go in a way that is in alignment with creating more positivity and more authenticness for us. That doesn't mean you're not going to experience negative stuff. We're human, we're on earth. The positive, negative, the polarity, it exists. It's how we're able to move through it, witness it, experience that changes the game, right? And that's where Christ consciousness of unconditional love comes in, and it can change your whole trajectory into your being. So if you want to invite this Christ consciousness into your life, I invite you to do so. Light a candle on this CHRSTmas. I invoke the Christ consciousness into my life, and make it a practice. Allow yourself to sit in that energy. What does it feel like to you? What does it look like to you? What would it be like? What is it like? Is that in my body? Maybe as I'm talking, your body's tingling because it's like already resonated in your DNA, and it's evolving in its own unique way. So yes, happy CHRSTmas, whatever it means to you. And I send you all a big hug on this holiday season.